Welcome to the Hamsey Analytics Daily Market Commentary. I'm Pablo Navarro. Today is Tuesday, August 28, 2012. For the market internals, the New York Stock Exchange advanced decline differential closed at 370. Nasdaq advanced decline differential closed at 429. We had 8 new 52-week highs for the S&P 500 and 4 new 52-week lows for the S&P 500. For the volatility, we had 186,000 contracts traded on the VIX today with 28 million in total premiums paid. Very light volume today here. For the dollar weighted put call ratio in September, we saw a 0.32, which is bearish, with 32% of the total premiums paid. In October, a 1.12 with 13% of the total premiums paid, and neutral reading. In November, a 0.30, which is bearish, with 28% of the total premiums paid, and in January, a 0.27, which is bearish again, with 20% of the total premiums paid. We must take into consideration that today we had very low volume on the contracts traded and the premiums on the volatility. Here we have the daily chart for SPX. Very interesting day, another flat day for the market, another doji in the chart, and we continue to be above the 0 sigma on the daily chart, which is still positive. One thing here that is concerning, you could see here how CI has turned completely negative now. We're facing a downward slope on CI. For CI diff, we continue to see negative numbers here, negative territory, not so positive. For sigma channel width on the daily chart, we stopped the contraction that we had here and now basically flat. Sigma channels are now very contracted. Volatility on the sigma channels, it's quite low so far. This is due to the fact that we are not moving much here on the intraday and on the daily chart. Going to the 60-minute chart, we have the weekly support, pivot, and resistance. Here we talked about these levels yesterday. We talked about this pivot, that it was going to be crucial to hold this level if we wanted to go either up or down. Yesterday we closed below this level. We were talking about our next target of 1397. That's still gonna be our support number 1 for the weekly, and here we continue to be below the pivot line. Today this was pretty much resistance overall. We came here, tested a couple of times this resistance almost every hour, you could see here, but not really a breakout in which we could trust it and maybe go for this 1425 level that we talked about as being weekly resistance number 1. So again, we continue to see this big range here. 1425 is gonna be our upper target, 1411 weekly pivot, and we're looking for 1397. That's gonna be our weekly support number 1. Still, we talked about Bernanke's speech on Friday. Most likely we're gonna keep on doing nothing until the speech, and we'll just have to watch these levels to see what we get here so far. We are pretty close to the pivot line, which means the market's not ready to decide if it want to go up or down. Maybe it's waiting for Bernanke's speech Friday to choose a direction here. For today's intraday market, here we have the 5-minute chart. You could see here pretty much nothing going on. We sold off a little in the morning, came back pretty fast, and then just flat the whole day, basically doing nothing and sell into the close to end up one handle lower for the day, pretty much flat. Now let's go to SPY chart. Here we have the 5-minute chart, pretty much the same, flat, not doing anything. Pretty tight sigma channels on the 5-minute. And let's go here to the 60-minute chart. We continue to be on the weekly pivot, 141.60. That's going to be an important level, either to the up or downside. We want to close above it and start maybe a breakout if we do, going for that 143 level, or definitely break down and go for this 140 level. We talked about these levels yesterday. Today nothing happened that changed the levels. Now let's go for GLD. GLD 60-minute chart here. Important levels. Today we were almost flat. We closed at 161.68. We still closed above the pivot for the weekly, which is important, which is going to be support at 160.28. We call that pretty close to the 200-day moving average. That's going to be important also if we go and test that 200-day moving average. Maybe hold that level and start getting bullish from that low risk entry level. On the upside, we're looking for 164. That's going to be weekly resistance number 1. Important level here. That's also the positive 3 sigma on the daily chart. We're just gonna go there to check that. You could see here positive 3 sigma is 194.93, so that could be our target on the upside. On the downside, we just talked about this 160.20 level, and here we have the 200-day moving average at 160. Very important levels here on the downside. We must hold this 200-day moving average for gold to go higher. Of course, we have Bernanke speaking Friday. This is going to be a critical event for gold. Maybe some talks about QE or not to QE. That's going to drive gold this week, so keep an eye on that. Now let's go to the IWM. Check here the levels real quickly, but again, not much going on. Here's the Russell 2000 ETF. We have been talking about this one. Here we have the levels pretty much in line with what we talked about for SPY. Weekly pivot. We are still deciding whether to go higher, test this 82.25, or to break down to the breakdown and go and test this 80.79 level. It's gonna be again important. Last week we were talking on this IWM inverse head and shoulders here on the daily chart. We talked about this shoulder, head, and shoulder. We talked this 82 and a half was very important level. The neckline, we failed to break that, and maybe we're still trying to break that neckline to the upside. We must try to break the highs of the year. This has been a lagging index so far. We had not made a new high for the year so far this month. Now going to the VIX. Here we have the VIX. You could see a 60-minute chart. That for VIX is better to look at the daily longer term. Too volatile for look at the 60-minute. Here we talked about a bottoming pattern here. CI was showing us this bottoming pattern here. It took quite a long term, but perfectly CI did pointed that out. We're now looking at 1649, positive 1 sigma, and the levels above here are gonna be 18, and then let's look at 20, 200-day moving average at 20. That could be our next target on the upside. Remember that the VIX moves very fast to the upside in case we get some bad news. On the downside, maybe look for 14s. Maybe stay around these levels while we get some uncertainty coming back into the market, but VIX has been rising steadily since we had this bottom here on CI. That's pretty much for today. Nothing much going on in the markets. We're gonna keep you posted from everything we get, and still waiting for Friday's Bernanke speech. We have a special offer by TradeStation. Get your Hamsey Analytics proprietary indicators paid by TradeStation. Contact Active Traders Office in Chicago, Peter Albino, at the number listed below. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.